to your point about farmers, I think what you're saying about like, family run farms
Correct.
is absolutely true. I do think we have a problem with a lot of the big conglomerates,
Right.
which, comprise most of the, I don't know the exact percentage, but most of, the food we grow here in the United States. And I was talking about this on a podcast episode a couple weeks ago, about like, at least in the upper Midwest, it's like big sugar, big corn, big soy,
Yes.
et cetera. Could you, because you know more about it than I do, could you help elucidate like the differences in how small family farms and these large conglomerates view agriculture and their role in our food?
Yes. Well, and it's not just small versus large, because there's probably smaller farms using some of the products that the large uh, agricultural conglomerates are using, because they've just kind of like, what's interesting is the companies that produce the subsidized crops. One thing is we started subsidizing a certain number of crops,
Yes.
mostly corn, wheat, sugar, and soy. So now we have an overabundance of these products.
Oh yeah.
And where do those products go? They go into junk food. That is essentially what makes up highly processed food.
That's why soybean oil is in like
Everything.
Yeah.
And so is corn.
Yes.
In some way, shape, or form, corn syrup, right? We went away from sugar to corn syrup. We can have that conversation.
We literally invented a new kind of gas to put corn in.
Exactly. And it can be argued that that's a better use for the corn.
I totally agree.
Ethanol. So yeah, we talk about that at Heritage a lot, and alternative uses. But anytime you're injecting subsidies into a market, it's going to distort the free market, right? And kind of the feedback loop of consumer demand and supply and demand. So there was this excess of supply. Well, what do we do with it? Oh, we'll create Doritos, corn chip, and then they're addicted to it. People have become addicted to that kind of food because it is addictive. High sugar, very palatable fats that don't actually have nutritive value, unlike a beef tallow or an olive oil or an avocado. And simultaneously, we got farmers addicted to chemical agriculture, to farming, what we now call conventional agriculture. I would argue conventional is not using any of those things, right? But it's also a boom in the population, a boom in a demand for these products now that they're addicted. Our lifestyles are fast, what I call kind of fast problems. Get rich fast, right? Eat fast, exercise fast. We demand things now, right? This kind of consumerism of fast. I want it now and I need it now. So fast money, fast enlightenment, that kind of speaks to the cult aspect, this fast enlightenment. I'm just going to follow a guru and I'll be enlightened, as opposed to the long, slow haul of what Christ asks us to carry the cross every day. So all of these things, there is some responsibility on our part, right, to look how we're behaving. But we got kind of used to this culture. So we demand all these products. And how are we going to meet that demand? Well, it's easier just to spray pesticides and then to create seeds that resist the pesticides, which are GMOs. So they can, because a pesticide will kill everything, right? It's like it's actually kind of an antifungal, antibacteria thing. It'll kill, like in our gut, it'll kill like an antibiotic. It kills everything, even the good stuff. So now we have to have Roundup Ready seeds, which are GMO seeds. And it's what happens is eventually this destroys the nutritive value of the soil. It just depletes the soil, because how it used to be is you did cover cropping. You had a whole ecosystem on a farm where everything was necessary in the natural world to kind of naturally maintain homeostasis on the farm, right? So you have bugs that have value. You have things that eat the bugs that have value. You've got horse manure, horse dung that has value because it refertilizes the soil. So you have this very sometimes fragile ecosystem. So I don't always want to say, like, I don't think there's some big room where a bunch of people, some bunch of dudes are with cigars and saying, how are we going to make everybody fat and sick? I think they came up with solutions that helped prevent disaster for farmers, right? Like crop insurance, Roundup Ready seeds that helped farmers be more productive easier. At the same time, though, we've depleted the soil to a point where absolutely it can't resist floods because there's nothing to hold it down. It's just kind of completely dry land, arid land. And so you've got disastrous floods. And then again, it's just like food. The more we become dependent on an outside source and not working in tune with nature, the same thing happens with our body, the more diseased we'll be. And I see this in the context, particularly with conservatism. It's a stretch, but I always try to kind of take a broad, almost spiritual, philosophical view. That's slavery, right? Being a slave to something. Like, I realized that when I was in the cult is like, I'm a slave to my thoughts. I'm a slave to somebody else for enlightenment. I'm a slave. And when I finally found true spiritual, emotional, psychological freedom with Christ, I'm like, this is what it means to be free. Right? We want to have support from our communities and our friends or our fellow farmers or our neighbors, right? When something goes wrong, but we don't want to be a slave to things that bind us, right? Which would be food. A lot of people are slave to what they eat. They have no control.
Yeah.
Right? And it takes discipline, just like our farming practices. If we want to move to more of a regenerative model, any farmer will tell you it's not easy. It takes time. It takes a lot of effort to learn. But once you're free of that, once these farmers are free of that conventional model, what we're now calling conventional, it actually will support them better financially. It will support their soil better, giving them more long-term sustainability. Now, again, you're always going to have catastrophes. It's also better for the environment, by the way, because the more you do start to do regenerative farming, that carbon that the left freaks out about gets captured in the soil. You can't have zero carbon. That's what plants feed off of.
Yeah.
That is life. Carbon is life. So their whole model of environmentalism is not even scientifically correct. It's just an ideology that they use to control people, right? To set up rules, arbitrary rules. So this is not going to be easy. And I'm not even saying that we can go to 100% regenerative model. I don't know that can feed the world, right? Or at least Americans. What we can do is we can start to support those farmers that are doing that kind of agriculture, regenerative agriculture. We can try to eat more locally. We can try to get to know our farmers. And everyone's like, well, you're in the city. I was like, look, anywhere. I live an hour and 15 minutes outside the city. It's all farms. It's not like it has to come that far away. I think, again, there's some personal responsibility and the culture really has to play a part of that has to drive the demand for these products. That's what we're talking. Like, I rather see a bigger demand, and you're seeing it with the Maha movement, with just making this stuff, putting this stuff out there, making people more informed. All of a sudden, people are like, where am I getting my eggs? And can I get them from somebody down the road as opposed to paying $12 and relying on imports from that? So it's such a, particularly agriculture, it's such an entangled web because you are talking about people's livelihoods. We have moved as we become more industrialized from an agrarian society to a more technological society. Is there space for technology and regenerative farming? Which is yes. We're actually having a panel talk about technology and regenerative farming at Heritage on August 12th, a whole discussion on all of these issues. But it is going to take some time to untangle. I think much more than 4 years of Trump, Kennedy, Vance. I think this movement has to last. I don't think the United States is very good at this, of thinking long term. Right. We want everything to happen right now. I think you were going to ask me something about that, right? Like, some of these are these Band-Aid fixes, right? Yeah. Like cane sugar instead of corn syrup, or at the end of food dyes. Is that really going to change? Well, it could. I mean, the food dyes have been shown to cause ADHD in children. So there, it could start. We're going to have to make these gradual changes. You're not going to turn this ship around in 4 years. So if we can set up a long-term plan and keep the Maha movement cohesive and not fractured, I think we have a real opportunity to change things.